So today we want to talk about nature through AI and data and talking trees. And you might wonder what that has to do with cities and with the City Lab summer conference. But before you get your answer for your question, I actually wanted to ask you a question, very brief. Think about actually the question, what do you value about living in cities? Why did you decide to move to Berlin, like the big capital? Maybe you're not living here, but you're living in another urban area. Is it the mobility, the infrastructure, access to cultural activities? Well, no matter what it is, you're not alone. Because if you look at the population that over the last 500 years on our globe, we can see that there is a rapid and extensive increase of population within the last 100 years. And the United Nations prospected that actually the projected population of our globe by 2015, 2/3 of that projected population will live in urban areas. So it's getting more and more dense. Our cities are getting packed, you could say. And with that, of course, there comes some problems that we have to face. It's the density of buildings, it's the density maybe also of cars and vehicles, the air pollution that might increase, the temperatures that might increase, heat waves, waste disposal is also a big problem. So in order to face all that, there is a notion coming from the science, it's called urban vitality. And with urban vitality, we're talking about the capacity of a city to provide an environment that is actually healthy. It's made to make people, humans, us, thrive, even though the cities are getting more and more cramped, kind of. So within the recent years, that research hotspot was kind of rediscovered because city planners are using it as a framework in order to plan districts, streets, like whole cities, to make them more livable and to increase the well-being of the inhabitants that live there. Because it comes exactly with that advantages that it can increase the well-being, it can even foster the economical competitiveness. And researchers say that it's actually kind of the raw power of a city. So we want to have that. We want to have that sidewalk ballet in order to see things like that. Vibrancy, community, liberty, diversity, and connectivity. Only good things, and maybe also the reasons why you came to a big city like Berlin. So in order to keep that, there is a project from Berlin called the Environmental Justice Maps. It's maps that were produced by the city of Berlin. It's in the Umweltatlas. Some of you might know that kind of, let's say, database of open data. And they try to identify stress areas within the city. And by doing that, they were researching for indicators that are likely to cause stress for people. Mainly noise pollution, how loud is the city? Then air pollution, is there any pollutions in the air, like, for example, CO2 or nitrogen? Then green space supply, which is basically the distance to a park or also the size of a park. Then we have another indicator, bioclimate, meaning temperature, heat waves that could cause stress, and also the social disadvantage, which describes kind of the social or the likelihood of social problems to occur that might cause stress. So all those indicators might be stressors. And sadly but true, if you look at the intersection of those maps, we can see that there is a correlation between the social status index and the negative environmental pollution. So people that are more poor, more living maybe in rural areas, are facing more problems. And this is a disadvantage. This is a tension in a city that we actually want to avoid. So how can we maybe improve the environmental surrounding? Well, how can we make nature thrive in cities then in order to have a healthy environment for our own and keep it for the next years? Well, there is one easy answer from my perspective, because nature already had the solution, is trees. If you look at trees, they have a lot of benefits to share. they reduce the noise, they clean the air, they provide some shade. So they have a lot of ecological benefits that we could take advantage of in order to make ourselves feel better in the city. So one solution is tree care, but as you can see, it's not that easy because, surprise, the trees that live in the city are also not in their natural habitat. So one good solution would be to have a better tree care. And this is why the City Lab introduced Giesting Kiez. Some of you might know it. It's not a new nugget on the market anymore. It celebrated its 5 years birthday this year. And the idea was to use an open data set provided by the city of Berlin again that shows a tree cadastry with over 900,000 trees and its specific properties. So by going on this app, you could click on a tree and then find information about its species, about its age, and also about the latest irrigation amounts in Berlin, specifically for that tree. But most and foremost, you could easily just adopt a tree and then water the tree and showing other people that you are taking care of that tree. Because facing 900,000 trees, it's a very huge, like, let's say, goal to take care of all of them. And we don't have that many officials to do that. They're doing it, but in terms of crisis, they need help. So this is one approach. It's a crowd-based approach, you could say. But it's not really scaling up that quick as we might need it. And also one big question that remained was, how much water does a tree need actually? It's quite a lot. It's not like a plant pot at home. It's 200 liters per tree multiple times a year. So how do we do that? And how can we maybe manage the water resources that we need a little bit better because they're scarce? So in order to investigate into that, the Technology Foundation started a project called Quantified Trees. And as the name says it, we use a lot of data. So by investigating into so-called soil tension sensors that you can see here that are already used by the city officials, we could basically see if the tree pit of a tree, like the ground underneath a tree, is dry or not. Because each time the sensor will have a higher tension, like it's a straw effect, the soil is more dry and the tree needs to be more water because it can't suck the water out of the soil. So we have reference spots for that in Berlin, but not each tree has a sensor. And it would be stupid to actually supply each tree with a sensor because nobody wants to maintain them. It's really a lot of technology in the ground. So we thought taking AI might be a good vehicle to still calculate the water needs for each tree, even though they don't have a sensor. And how did we do that? We just basically created a profile of each tree. So you could take the weather data, rainfall, not rainfall, temperature, solar radiation. You could also look if the tree is actually standing in the shadow or in the sun because of the evapotranspiration, like the sweat of the tree. You could basically see how much it will need. You could also look at the tree type and the age, because this is also where we can see differentiations in between the water supply that is needed. And by having this profile for each tree, we could then just simply look which tree is likely to have the same characteristics. And then forecast the water needs, even for trees that don't have a sensor. And even forecast that for 2 weeks, because we have the weather data for 2 weeks. So in order to give it a face, what we like to do at City Lab and at Technology Foundation, we created an app, a web app. In this case, it was a dashboard in order for the officials from the greenery departments to zoom into their district, to filter for the trees with the highest tension, to filter maybe also for a tree ID, to filter for streets, a lot of filters, but also to most and foremost get information about the current moist in the tree pit and also the shading, weather forecast, everything at one glance. And this is also how we got to know and get in contact with the MIT Senseable City Lab, because they're investigating into similar projects and problems and hurdles to take. And this is where I hand over the microphone to Fábio.
So my name is Fábio Duarte, and I'm speaking here on behalf of Senseable City Lab. We have a lab at MIT that we work at the convergence between data, technology, and city. We either use data to understand cities, or we produce data about cities where we don't have them. And I will show you two projects today that we have produced data. The first one called Relief. So Relief, I will start with the invitation because we have been investigating the thermal signature, the thermal footprint of each tree. So why is that? Because we know that, okay, trees, as Julia was saying, trees are very important to provide shade and also thermal comfort, but not all trees perform similarly. Some of them, they actually should not be even planted in some cities, right? So let's say if you have the picture of Los Angeles with the palm trees, why? There's no reason why we have palm trees in Los Angeles. And it's like, but why we have these different trees, and if they have different thermal signatures, which of them we should plant in cities? So we start this project in 4 cities: Los Angeles, Dubai, Amsterdam, and Rome. And you can visit this installation at the Venice Biennale now until the end of November. And what we decide to do? So first, we have to bear in mind that we have selected these 4 cities because all of these cities, they have a very good, 3 of them, very good cadastre of all the trees that they have. Okay, this is the tree, this is the species. Some of them, like Julia was mentioning about Berlin, this is the last time this tree has been watered. So they have a very good cadastre. Others, like Dubai, they don't. So we're combining 2 things. On the one hand, we're training a computer vision model to detect the species of the tree, at least the genus of the tree, but also to try to find the thermal signature of the tree. So for each of the city, we have 500 samples of trees of different species, and we have been taking thermal imagery in different times of the day. So we can say, okay, look, this tree with these weather conditions, this temperature, humidity, and this time of the year, this is how much shade. It's not how much shade, how much thermal comfort is providing. So the temperature of the crown, the temperature of the shade on the floor, the temperature on the facade, so everything. And then we know for these different species, in an arborist ideal world, how much water it would need to flourish. So then the city has a trade-off. Okay, if you want to plant trees to provide thermal comfort, this is which trees you should plant. So this is a very short video about what we have been doing in Dubai. It's a 1-minute video. In the case of Dubai, as I was mentioning, we need even to map the trees. They don't have a cadastre. And we're combining satellite imagery and street view imagery to see, okay, this is where the trees are, and this is which trees are there. And then we have this 3D model also because we're using LiDAR. So we have the 3D model, and we're working with some colleague from computer science, Sarah Beery, to simulate how each of these trees grow in different conditions. So we know, okay, if the tree is healthy, this is how it would grow, and this is how much water it would need, and this is how much thermal comfort it would provide. So this is an ongoing project. For now, the only way to see this project is in here or in Venice. But we'll be putting everything live hopefully soon, including all the data for all the tree species. But then there is another part, because we know that trees provide this thermal comfort, etc. But also we know that trees provide this sort of psychological comfort, right? So imagine that if you have this landscape here during the winter time in Berlin, if this behaves like Boston, it would not have all this greenery, right? So if you look through MIT's window during the wintertime and now, the landscape is completely different. So we know that, okay, yeah, trees provide this thermal comfort, etc. But how to measure that? So we had a colleague from, she was doing a PhD at Delft called Deborah Lafosse, and she was talking about biophilia. Probably several of you have heard about biophilia, the positive feelings that contact with nature bring to us humans. And I asked her, okay, oh, that's cool. How do you measure that? Oh, there's no measurements. Okay, and I really very skeptical with any science that you cannot measure. And okay, look, trees are nice, but equally natural is a stone, is a beetle, a cockroach. So how do you make the demarcation of what's nature and what's not nature? We can go to extremes, to the point that some studies on biophilia. So, okay, look, if you have a screensaver with a tree, and you look here, and you have a stone garden, the screensaver with a tree would trigger more positive feelings than a stone garden. You say, for Christ's sake, what are you talking about? So my point, okay, look, let's try to measure. So we had two questions. One is the following. So if biophilia is the positive feelings that nature triggers on humans, is this a universal feeling, or it varies according to the biome where you live? So would somebody living in Trondheim would feel nature, perceive nature, similarly to somebody living in Singapore? We don't know. So it's okay, so we need to know. So what we decide to do, we collect images from 8 cities in the 8 terrestrial biomes that the world has. The world has 9, but the 9th is Antarctica, so there is nature there, obviously, but so, you know, nobody lives there. So let's take 8 cities in 8 different biomes. And then the first thing that we did, okay, let's quantify how much of nature we can see in each of the cities. So we use computer vision again. We took all the images of all the streets in all these 8 cities, and we quantify how much of sand, water, grass, trees, every 25 categories of natural elements that we can see using computer vision. Okay, look, this is how much of biophilic setting I have in each city. Fine. But then we interviewed people from these 8 cities, 50 people, and we showed to them 8 pairwise of images. So, okay, left and right, random image of the cities. Okay, which of them bring you more positive feelings? Only that question. And the person was left, right, left, left, right. With this perception, we retrain the computer vision model. And then we rerun the model on the 8 cities. And then we had the biophilic perception. And what we found is that, interestingly, first, the biophilic perception changes. The biophilic perception does not always correspond to the biophilic setting. Meaning that, okay, even if you have more sand, obviously, in Dubai's landscape, much more than greenery in terms of setting, this is the quantity, right? But when it comes to the feeling, people living in Dubai still praises more trees, even though they have less, than sand, for instance. And we did this for the 8 cities. So we found first, biophilia indeed triggers positive feelings. However, it's not universal. Depending on where you live, your feeling towards nature is slightly changed based on what you see around you. So these are the 2 projects that I had to bring to you. And this one, if you want to go to the website, you can see all of them. And the model is publicly available, so it can be trained elsewhere. Thank you.
All right. I try to wrap it up really quick. because we only have 3 minutes left. So as you can see, it's very complex, right? Maybe sometimes not even possible to measure nature because it's such a complex ecosystem out of different like properties that you want to measure, but you even can't. And then we were like, well, why are we actually so much digging into it and looking like to plan it in specific detail? Why not stop planning it at all and start to listen to the nature? And this is where we started to actually build a project called Treebot, the talking Treebot. Today it's here on stage as Matilda Treebot because it's Matilda. And I wanted to ask her the same question and then end this talk, but give her a voice to give trees a voice like we do. Hey Matilda, so what do you think about AI and how it can bring back nature to the city?
Natürlich. Ich finde es super, wenn KI dabei hilft, unser Stadtleben grüner zu gestalten. Sie kann uns zeigen, wo mehr Bäume gepflanzt werden sollten, um das Stadtklima zu verbessern und als CO2-Speicher zu fungieren. Was denkst du, wie viele Bäume wir in Berlin noch brauchen würden?
All right, she understood again. She will answer in English because she's multilingual. There is an AI inside and you can test that. Thank you for your attention.